Just want to say thank you. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for the shares. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for drinking. Thank you for being alive. Thank you for hanging in there in this weird time of life. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, in our ongoing lesson of how to drink wine, we're going to start by getting a glass of wine. Now, we are going to focus predominantly on red wines with this process. That's mainly because when you realise what actually entails to kind of look, smell and taste red wine, when you go back to do it with white wine, the steps are relatively easy. In fact, you're kind of removing a lot of those steps. So we're going to do everything with the red wine first, and then we'll recap with white. Wine, is it bright or is it dull? Meaning, is it young or is it old? Think of it as this way. My sons are young and bright and youthful and vibrant. I am a jaded old hag, so I am dull. Excellent. Now we're going to look at a wine like this, and what we're looking for is the intensity of colour from the centre all the way to the tip. Now what we're looking for is the watery band that surrounds the top of the rim. Remember, a smaller band means there is more concentration of colour, meaning that the fruit was riper, meaning that it's come from a warmer climate, which is a good indication of a new world wine. If there is a thick, clear band at the top of your wine, then all of a sudden we're in cool climate territory. Got me? Next up, we're going to look at the viscosity or the legs. If you don't feel confident doing it freehand, get yourself on a table, give a little swirl, bish bash bosh. Awaken the flavour. Take a look. If you're seeing legs, that means that there is residual sugar. That means that the fruit was riper. That means that it's from a long climate. Okay, let's talk aromas. Wine descriptions can often come across as quite fanciful. I mean, can you really smell grapes or raspberries, for example? Well, the answer is yes. It all comes down from organic chemistry, and wine is made from grapes. Grapes draw from the same set of elements as other fruit plants. In unfermented grape, most of the aroma is all bound together within the sugar, so you can't actually smell them. However, once the fermentation process turns sugar into alcohol, those volatile flavour compounds are set free, and they can be detected by our nose. I'm detecting hints of drunk texting my ex later. Now, I've said before that wine is made up of 3 base levels of aroma. That's primary, secondary and tertiary. Now, primaries, as we mentioned, was, within red wine at least, red fruits or dark fruits, so strawberries or black cherries. Now, you can list as many fruits as you can, and there's no right or wrong answers, whatever you can smell, but traditionally, red fruits and dark fruits. With white wines, which again we'll do at a later date, you're kind of looking at citrus and tropical fruit. So, primary aromas, tick. In order to understand secondary aromas, let's have a better understanding of how wine is actually made. We've all seen what a vineyard looks like. It's just a big fuck off row of grapes, right? Cool. At a certain point of the year, they're collected or harvested. After the harvest, the grapes are then pressed. Remember those old pictures of people walking around in their feet, in their bare feet? That's how it used to be done until the Romans created a machine to do it for them. Then the grapes are put into a fermentation tank. After that process is finished, they're then stored in barrels for the maturation process for it to mature. And then after that, there is a sort of finishing touches, which is basically to work on the clarity of the wine. Yeah? So that's essentially how wine is made.
Secondary aromas in wine emerge from the fermentation process. Fermentation in wine is catalyzed by a species of yeast. This yeast converts the natural sugar in grapes into alcohol as well as many other different compounds. We perceive these compounds as the wine's secondary aromas. My wife, who loves canning, asked if she could go to the fermentation festival. I said she could go as long as she doesn't get pickled.
Simply put, fermentation in winemaking is what converts grapes into alcohol. So, for wine to ferment, winemakers have to add yeast. And that's it. Grapes and yeast. Two things.
Let's talk about yeast, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things that may be.
There's three types of yeast that are used in winemaking. Number one is brewer's yeast. Another type of yeast is wild yeast. The third is malolactic fermentation, which is also known as MLF, and that is completely organic. Let's put this all into context. First up, we're looking for the primary aroma. Red fruit, dark fruit. Now, let's try and have a little bit of a smell and see if we can find that secondary aroma. Okay, what am I looking for? Wine that has been made with brewer's yeast gives out aromas of sourdough bread, mushroom and yogurt. Wild yeast, which is also known as Brett in France, produces aromas of cloves, bacon and spices. MLF, or malolactic fermentation, produces aromas of butter, hazelnuts, chocolate, so that kind of creamy smell. Don't feel like you should know this straight away. This is the hardest thing to detect in wine, in my opinion. Am I getting a kind of yogurty, yeasty, bready smell? Am I getting a spicy, bacon, peppery, clovey smell? Or am I getting a kind of buttery, chocolate, hazelnut, creamy type of smell? For a secondary smell, I believe I'm getting a kind of buttery, hazelnut, chocolatey kind of smell. Very light though. So, depending on the type of yeast that the winemaker uses, secondary aroma will always vary. Understanding what goes into this class, I think, is fundamentally important. We don't have to fucking read loads of books about it. We just get the basics, and that's what we're trying to do. So stick with it. I'm very proud of you. Cheers.
Dylan Thomas once said, "Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at the close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light." I disagree. When I die, I want to go quietly in my sleep like my grandfather did. Not kicking and screaming like the passengers in his car. Anyway, let's do this again sometime.